Hi, Tracy. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. You're up in the northern suburbs, and would you mind introducing yourself to our audience, please?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I wear the two hats. So I'm Mayor of the City of Wanneroo, very proud, and also the President of the West Australian Local Government Association, and also the Vice President of the Australian Local Government Association. So local government through and through.
Doesn't sound like you have much more time on your hands. Maybe between 3 and 4 in the mornings you have some spare time. Is that right?
And it's amazing how you go to sleep and you're thinking about things, and then you wake up and you're thinking about things. And obviously some things are more disturbing than others. One of the last time I had a really early start and had to be up and really looking bright and shiny, it was 5 o'clock in the morning when I had a Zoom meeting with the mayors of Brazil. And that was just a few weeks ago. And that was a really compelling Zoom meeting, because you could see in their eyes the upset and, how devastated they were that members of their community were dying at such a high rate, and what they could do from local government and obviously the eyes of the world around Western Australia, because, of the success, touch the wood, that we're achieving in our communities, doing the right things, and our leaders, our premier, making the right decisions to keep communities safe. So that's attracted the eyes of the world, and so it was quite a compelling discussion to have with the mayors of Brazil.
That's amazing that your position now gives you an opportunity to interact with that kind of level in the world, with all the leaders worldwide. So you're not just in Wanneroo anymore. You suddenly opened your doors, and now your virtual doors pretty much, and your experience doors, and now you're able to communicate and get that interaction with the rest of the world. That's great. And it's a wonderful privilege for us to have you here in WA, and we can claim you as ours. I hope you're okay with that idea.
Absolutely. I mean, I love Western Australia. I was actually born in England, but lived in Western Australia for most of my life, and just that real sense of community in Western Australia is so strong. Last week with the CEO of Walga, we were in the wheat belt, and the regional, the communities and the local governments, and how hard everybody's working to make sure that their communities are engaged, that they're well looked after, they're supported, and that they feel safe. And that's just been such a strong message from right around the state. So it is, and when you live and breathe local government, I guess that sense of reaching out, talking to people and engaging with them is really important.
So how long have you been the mayor at Wanneroo for, and how long have you been an elected member at Wanneroo for?
Okay, so I was elected mayor in 2011. Since then, I was 2 years as a deputy mayor, but I was first elected onto council in 2003. So,
wow.
And I previously worked in local government. So yeah, it's from my perspective, that grassroots local level decision making impacts significantly on communities, so we have to get it right.
Yes, no, absolutely. So as you say, you live and breathe local government, and you have done so for a long time. So over all these years, what have you found as an elected member firstly, and secondly as a mayor? What has been the most challenging thing for you?
I guess the first thing when I was elected onto local government, people in your community who you talk to, who you get to know through the sporting clubs or lots of different connections that you have, become quite cynical. I think the worst case is that they become quite cynical because they think you've had a change overnight, and social media can be very cruel. And not just for me as an elected member, but for every elected member. And you tend to become a target rather than a community member. So the feeling of becoming like a human dartboard overnight was quite something I had to grapple with.
Yeah, it's very tricky. I do agree. And even if you've been in it for a while, it's still, every time you find yourself reading those kinds of comments, those negative comments, it hurts. It does hurt. And you have to remind yourself that those people are just upset at something or something that's happened, it's not really something personal towards you. It's more about the circumstances that you were involved in. Well, anyway, that's how I like to remind myself of. Yeah.
And it's true. And then as you get more experience, you're able then to identify and you know yourself that because people are upset, it's usually the nearest and dearest that cop it. But obviously it's still hurtful, and it's not that you get more resilient as you get more experienced in the role. You are actually quite right. You are able to say, well, this is a community that's going to be upset. So you at least kind of can arm yourself, and it's not a personal attack, albeit it does feel personal, especially some of the faceless keyboard warriors.
Oh, yep.
I do a lot of work with children and, you know, impacts of social media on children. And you can, as an adult, it's hurtful. So you can imagine how children, you know, find it really difficult to understand the attacks that's occurring. So probably one of the worst things as an elected member would be social media.
Social media. And as a mayor specifically, would you still say social media, or what in that position as a mayor has been really hard for you to deal with?
Probably social media on steroids. Yeah. So I mean,
wow.
it really is. And people seem to forget that you're a person, but you're a target. And this is like not the majority, the silent majority. You have to remember and you have to remind yourself that the silent majority are there, and they're the voice of reason. Sometimes it's the social media attacks that you know are not the majority, and it's to try and make sure that you don't focus everything and how you do things around social media. And it's progressively got worse, you know, over the years as social media ramps up. So yeah, without a doubt, you know, I mean, but engaging with other local communities, local governments, everybody. I mean, the local sporting clubs, the local footy club have got issues of the same kind. So it's the same, it's just elevated. And I know also our state and federal politicians have that. It's just remembering how to deal with it in a professional manner and not let it sort of try and undermine your own integrity.
And don't let it suck you in, because I've seen it time and time again where some elected members we all feel personally attacked, but it's about stepping away, breathing in, breathing out, taking some time out, remembering why, or trying to understand why those people said it, and then don't get involved with it emotionally. I always respond just factually and professionally, and invite them for, you know, if you would like to grab a coffee, always happy to catch up in person. And they tend to not come back if it's not really a serious issue. You don't hear from them again. So, but yes, it's been really tricky in that instance. Now let's go to the flip side, Tracy. What's been the absolute best thing for you about having been an elected member and a mayor?
Okay, so being the mayor of Wanneroo, and we're one of the fastest and largest growing local governments in Australia. So we are literally at times creating communities out of sand dunes. Areas that have been designated for decades to be developed and starting to be developed, and making sure that the facilities that the community have are well timed, and that to meet the needs, and taking the communities on that journey. So we've got new communities being developed, but we've also got our established communities where everybody has got a great sense of community. I often think that if we build the community on the whole of the city of Wanneroo, on the values of our pioneers, we won't go too far wrong. Those that came into Wanneroo when there was no running water, no electricity, the market gardeners, they worked the land, and so, you know, that real sense of community spirit, so that new people, when they move into the area, feel a sense of connection, feel that sense of community, and feel that they've made a right decision on where they've chosen to live. And if you can tick those boxes, then you're doing well as a leader, and the fact that your community is engaging.
Yes, that's really exciting when I find myself when I'm driving around and you're able to see the changes that you've been a part of. It just makes it more real to you sometimes.
It does.
Because really we sit around the boardroom table, the council table in the chambers and make our decisions from there. But it's not until you actually go out and you see it for yourself in person that you go, wow, yes. Thank you for being able to participate and help this come to a reality. So, Tracy, as a woman on council, have you had any challenges?
Not really. I never see myself as different. So we've never had the boys' club. Certainly, you know, when I was first on council, there was fewer females than what there are now. We've got our executive team. We've got 50% female directors and also our councillors. So we've got a really good balance, but we all work together. I have never once felt like it was a boys' club. And I, you know, I mean, the mayor at the time, John Kelly, was very inclusive. And I think that's something that we've just built upon. Having said that, you know, I have spoken with some other elected members that have felt that. And I think it's really important that if you're feeling that you articulate it, that you say something. You know, don't, and I'm no shrinking violet. I'm kind and I care, but I'm not weak. So I think it's really important if you're feeling that sense of, I feel excluded, I don't feel like they're engaged me, and because of different reasons, whether it's a female or other reasons, you straight in there and you say, I really feel like I'm being excluded. I want to know why.
Communication, so important.
Yeah. Don't sit on it, don't stress, don't worry about it, but, you know, try and really get to, there's different ways of doing it, you know, I mean, it depending on your comfort levels, whether it's, you know, bailing up to somebody and saying, we need to talk, sit down and talk, or whether it's by a communication, a different form of communication, you know, maybe an email to say, I've got some concerns, I'd like to sit down and have a chat, you know, lots of different ways of doing it depending on how you're feeling. But the worst thing is to be accusing, because I've found from research that people might not realize they're doing it. It's just something that they do without even realizing that they've been excluding others.
Yes, that's very true. Yeah. And your typical work week, I know you're a full-time mayor because it's a choice. People might not know that you can choose to be a full-time or a part-time mayor. You're a full-time mayor, and you also have these two other roles that you've mentioned earlier. How do you split your time between those? And could you give us an idea of what your typical week would look like?
Absolutely. So for me, it's all local government. So it's all same core business. I was elected to president of WALGA in March, 5 days before COVID hit. Let me tell you, did the world not change that? It was like literally, and people have heard me say, it's like somebody's got the grenade, pulled the pin out and just gone boom. And so everything changed, you know, how we did business, you know, so from our city's perspective, we redeployed staff to make sure that the areas of vulnerability in our community were addressed. You know, we tried our absolute best to make sure that there was a voice on the end of a telephone. We tried to make sure that our whole organisation was supporting others. So a lot of what we would see as normal business changed in the way that we did it, how responsive and how agile we were. And from a WALGA perspective, fantastic to see. I am so proud of our state, the local governments in our state, how every single one of them literally managed to pivot instantly. And it was a lot of hard work, you know, literally rolling up the sleeves, burning the midnight oil to make sure that our community, our organisations were able to meet the needs of the community and also try and second guess the needs of the community. So from WALGA's perspective, we introduced the webinars, we introduced the daily bulletins, so that when things were coming down from a federal level to a state level, that local governments got that information immediately, so that it was then out to the communities. So lots of, no matter how large, how small, how remote your organisations are within local government, there was those key messages. So because it's all same core business, it's quite easy. It's not as if I'm like in IT and then I'm off trying to do something in health department.
It's really the same hat.
Exactly the same. And you know, and you're just building on, and it's that knowledge that expands. Like, for example, we spoke before about, you know, connecting with the mayors of Brazil. That was really, because it's a core business I do as the mayor, and I also do as the president and as the vice president. So yeah, it's so, from that sense, it runs through your veins, and you know, all the time you're listening, you're engaging, and you're obviously advising, but you're still listening and thinking, well, that's a great idea what somebody else is doing. We should, rather than reinvent the wheel, we should introduce that.
Yeah. So that's a full-time plus, let's say, almost an additional part-time role on top. It's not 2 roles, it's 3 roles, but it's 1 role in a way.
Like absorbed. It's like absorbed into the role. Yeah.
So how many hours a week would you say you typically spend doing local government?
Me, probably, I refer to it as a 24/7, because the last thing you look at before you go to bed is your emails and your diary for the next day. So one of the things I am really envious about, though, with the guys that are in local government, is that they would probably get up and they'd think, I'm going to wear 1 suit and I get 4 different ties, and you've got a change of look. Whereas with us females, it could be, you know, 1 thing, and then there's going to be a change of outfits. So sometimes you could have 4 different outfits a day. And it's amazing how your car becomes like a driving wardrobe. But yeah, so I mean, your diary is the last thing you look at the night before to make sure you're prepared for the next day. And then weekends is busy. Like, I've been at sporting events this morning, taking some time to have a chat with you now, and then I'll go and peg the washing out, literally. And then I'm out at a function tonight, and then tomorrow, there's meetings in the morning, and so but you know, it is really busy. I've got a fantastic deputy mayor, and I've got a fantastic deputy president. So depending on, German Shepherd's just dropped his phone. So depending on you know, where I need to be, I've got fantastic backup. So it works itself through. But I also had a message probably about 10 o'clock last night from somebody who's overseas that are trying to get back into Australia. They went over for a funeral, they can't get back, talking about the airlines, and they've been sort of refused. They've been 7 weeks trying to get back. They've got 2 children, want to get them back into school. And so they reach out to local government, because that's the tier of government that they know best. And so that's difficult, because it's not our jurisdiction. But what I did, rather than say, oh, it's not my jurisdiction, I responded back and I said, look, I'll make sure that the state, the federal members are aware. Here are the contact details. I will copy them into this email so that they're aware of your plight. And hopefully, by all working together, we can try and get you home sooner rather than later.
That's wonderful.
You know, so it's how you respond. I mean, I could have ignored that message until the next day, but then I'm thinking to myself, somebody's hurting on the other side of the world who sent an email. I know it's 10 o'clock at night, but for me, an extra 12 hours isn't going to mean anything, but for them, in 12 hours is just. So, and then I got an email straight back to say, thank you so much for responding. We know it's late in Australia, and we really do appreciate it. And the fact that somebody's listening helps. So.
You've raised a very interesting point there, and that is that we're almost that first point of call for people, because firstly, they don't understand necessarily the different tiers of government and who's responsible for what. And I don't blame them, because it is really, it's not tricky, but there's so much that it's not very obvious always what's state and what's federal and what's local government responsibility. So because we're among them in the same community, I find that, yes, we're that first point of call. They go, I don't really know who to go to, but because I know that you're in my area and you represent me, I'm reaching out to you firstly. So that's really great. And secondly, I just wanted to say, I was at the meeting, the State Council meeting, where you were elected as president for State Council. And from what I've seen from then until now, I think you've been doing a fabulous job through all of COVID's dramas. And we all feel very informed with what WELGA has been doing. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. Thank you. No, I appreciate that feedback, and that would mean a lot to the team at WELGA too, because they've been working so hard, and especially with the local government act review panel reports. and making sure that we've been able to get reports out to the local governments for their zone meetings and then state council meetings. So really do appreciate that feedback. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. And Tracy, you've been involved for, what's the math, 2003 till now, 17 years. Do you have any children, or did you have any children or more family members to look after during this period? Because I'm assuming that it's you might not have young children anymore.
No, that's right. No, they've grown up through local government, and yeah, they certainly know they know the drill. Yeah, my youngest was only a couple of years old, so yeah, it's and he's known local government, and yeah, it's and they all their friends know that their mum's involved in local government. It's amazing how many people reach out, you know, or we'll talk to Lee's mum, or we'll talk to Matt's mum, and you know, and see. So
how have you juggled that family life and being a counsellor in terms of time?
At first, as being a counsellor was relatively easy, because you had your council meetings and wasn't mayor then. So you get into a really good routine. It's amazing how organised you do become. Because I did work full time at a school. I was the foundation registrar of a K-12 school in Mindarie. And, you know, so that was, and then the council meetings, it was busy, but we're highly organised as a family, and which was good. You have to be. And then it's just evolved. I mean, now being a full-time mayor, but luckily my boys are older now, so they're driving, and you know, one's engaged, about to be married. So yeah, they've literally come through. Local government has been like part of their life.
And now it's a little bit easier because you don't have to change any nappies and feed babies. Yeah. I'm on the opposite end of the scale to you in that regard. I have 4 under 7, so
so you'll be really organised too.
Well, you have to be. It's, you know, it's just what you do with it. You could decide not to be, but yes, I do enjoy being organized and having some sanity, because if I wasn't going to be organized through this gig, I wouldn't have been able to do it, and also work full-time and have, you know, a part-time. This is on top, because I'm not a mayor, I'm obviously just a part-time counsellor. So it's interesting how children can make things harder in a way, but they can also make things easier, because when I see my children, it puts my job or my role as a counsellor into perspective for myself, and it reminds me of why I'm doing what I'm doing in a lot of instances. And it's about them, you know, the children and the people in our community, and trying to make the world a better place every day, wherever we can.
Exactly.
So
you're
Tracy,
exactly.
Are you when is your term up? Are you halfway through your mayor term, or is it up next year?
No, I was elected last year for 4 years, because we're directly elected as a mayor, so by the community. So I was elected last year for 4 years.
Okay.
So my term finishes in 2023.
Oh, thank goodness you don't have to worry about an election for the next 4 years. But that said, I'm sure when you've been around like you have been for so long, and because you're so involved in the community, you don't really, and correct me if I'm wrong, you don't really have to have much of a campaign as such, do you? Because you're out there for 4 years all the time anyway, speaking to the community. Or do you still find that when the election campaign comes up, that it's a bit stressful for you?
Yeah, it's definitely stressful, because when you're really passionate about something and you put your name forward, it's a bit like when you're in, I always liken it to being in the grand final of, you know, like the AFL. You know, you've been playing your games and everybody knows you, but you just never know what's going to happen at that grand final. So, I mean, what I do, I'm a communicator, and I engage with my community groups. What I do is, I nominate, and then I put out to each member of my community a brochure, which basically talks about, you know, the projects delivered, the projects that's on the horizon, and community groups talk about a little bit about me, what I've achieved, you know, and without, obviously, you don't want to blow your own trumpet, but be very factual about things, you know, since this election, this is what's been achieved. But I am very much a communicator. I like to be out there. There's nothing worse for me I read lots of reports, as you would do too, as elected members do. but I also like to go and visit people and talk to people, because the extra things, information that you get that's not written in a report is really valuable.
Yeah.
So I am an out and about person. I'm not sitting in the office and just signing documents, and I do get out and about a lot, and that's my favorite part of the role, meeting people and engaging with people. You just talked about children, and they are very grounding, and also you think about the decisions that you're making today impact on the future generations. And that's one of the reasons that, I am in local government, because I know the decisions that we make as a council right across our state, well, right around the world, it does make an impact immediately on people's lifestyles.
So when you first ran for council in 2003, why did you decide to put your hand up?
We had an issue in our community that, because I previously worked in local government, and I saw the report that was going through to council because there was an issue. I didn't go looking for it, but one of my neighbours came, "Have you seen this? This is what they're proposing to do." And I looked and I thought, oh, there's a much better way of achieving what they want to achieve without all of this, discontent and outrage. So I did a deputation to council and said, look, there's an opportunity here for us to have a win-win. And I was quite surprised. I would have thought that, from council's perspective, it would have been, well, yeah, okay, if you've got something to bring to the table. But it was more like, well, we've done all of our research and we've done this, and this is what we're arriving at. So I thought, that's very short-sighted. You've got a community that's happy to engage with you on a positive level, to put some views forward that were very realistic, and it wasn't some pie in the sky project. So I was a little bit disturbed that there was a view of a lack of engagement. So I pursued that a little bit. Anyway, cut a long story short, we did manage to have a change in decision. We did some petitioning and a little bit more deputations and engaging. And and then we were able to resolve the issue by same outcome but in a different way. And this was like transferring one issue to another place, and it's all about passive surveillance and so on, lifestyle that would have impacted negatively on so many different people. And then I thought there needs to be a little bit more of a voice around the table. And then at the next election, one of the councillors wasn't standing, so there was a vacancy. I didn't actually go in there to knock a councillor that was currently sitting. There was a vacancy. And then there was about 5 or 6 people put up for the same vacancy, and I was successful. And one of the things that I pledged going in there, that our community engagement, our community consultation would be significant, and just get the, I mean, obviously you get concerns with residents that would object for lots of different reasons. But I mean, if you can get the consensus, you can't please everybody at all times. If you can get a consensus, for me, that's that's a job that you've done well, because you've taken more people on the journey, and try and reduce the projects that's happening that's going to impact negatively. Obviously, there's some instances, like I remember when residences had purchased their homes right around a block of land where a new school was going to be built, and then when the new school was about to be built, there was a lot of concern. I said, but you knew that this was going to be a school site. So that's a difficult one to manage. You can't say, well, okay, we're hearing you, and the school will no longer be built there, because the school's already been designated for that purpose.
Yeah, very true. I found that being a councillor or an elected member, you often have to be like a mediator.
Yeah.
It's about getting two parties together, essentially, and helping them understand the points of views of both sides. Because, well, it's like anything else. If there are conflict between two people, both of them have their own points of views. And if you can get it across why that person is thinking the way they are, what's upsetting them, and likewise for the other way, they tend to be more open to settle in the middle often. So it's mediating, communicating both sides' points of views, and that would be council and the residents, or whoever the party is that's unhappy. It could be businesses, it could be so many different kinds of stakeholders. So yes, it's communication skills again that comes in really handy. So thank you so much for taking the time. I guess, Tracy, we are hoping that we can get more women elected into local government. And one of the big problems that we have is that not many women run for council. So it's about putting up your hand before you can actually be elected. So if we have any, and well, obviously we'll have some women watching this that consider potentially running, what would you say to them? What's your kind of advice that you provide them about putting up their hands?
Do it. If you love your community, if you're passionate about what your neighborhood's going to look like in the future, and what sporting clubs, what schools, anything that you can achieve, anything that different that you think should be done in the community, that you think you can make a difference, put your hand up and be a voice. Be a voice that's in making decisions that impacts on community. I address a lot of school children, and they've done the usual set of, local government, state government and federal government. And I say to them, I said, imagine a local government. Imagine your house, and you've got your pavements, and you've got your local roads, and you go past the library, past the community centre, and you go to the sporting oval, you've got lights there, you've got change rooms, and they go, yeah. And so imagine you're walking back, you're walking away, you're playing on your sport, the lights go out and the light poles disappear, and your ovals disappear. And as you're walking away, your community change rooms has disappeared. And then your library disappears, your community centre disappears, your pavements disappear, your local roads disappear. And then you've got a block of land with your house on it with a dustbin, your dustbin disappears. I said, and that would what a community would look like without local government. So any females out there, if you think you can make a difference to your community, and you have that in your heart, and you're passionate about, helping the community, you're involved in maybe a P&C or all these different communities, put your hand up, because you're the people that we want, the people, the grassroots that really do genuinely care about what a community is going to look like.
Thank you, Tracy. Such wise words from somebody who's walked the walk and talked the talk. You've been there for so many years. You would know if it was worth to try and compel women to get involved. So we do really appreciate you taking the time out to having a chat with us, even with your busy schedule. And I hope that you've got a little bit of time that you can grab with your husband and just with your dogs and have some time off before you head out to your event tonight again. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. And one of the worst things is, as a female in local government, is the fact when you go to the hairdressers and you're there for a while and you think, I haven't got an hour and a half, 2 hours, especially if you want to have, and that's the worst thing, because as you can see from mine at the moment, I have hair appointments cancelled, and now I'm like, my hair's looking an absolute disgrace. So tomorrow morning I booked my hair appointment and she's coming here, so there you go.
Well, that's the beauty. You can swap your schedule around and fit them in if you have to, because it's not a 9 to 5 kind of, you have to be in the office. You can change it because you're spending most of your weekend and evening hours anyway doing work. So well done.
You got that flexibility.
That's right. Thank you, Tracy. Enjoy your afternoon.
Okay, well then, thank you so much for having me. Really enjoyed it, and I hope that what I had to say, and it's from the heart, so thank you.
Absolutely appreciate it. You will definitely warm some women to consider running, which is great. Take care.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Goodbye.